Hey, welcome to this edition of Thrive. It's so good to have you with us. I appreciate you taking the time to tune in and watch. As always, my prayer is that something I would say would encourage you in order to help you thrive in the life that you're called to. One of the things that I've been smiling to myself about, I guess, and just reflecting on over the last few weeks as we've prepared to move into this time of freedom, I guess we might call it, in level two, is the way that so many people have spent a lot of time planning holidays. So many people have online and in conversations been talking in great detail about the type of holiday that they're planning, where they want to go and why, and all those sorts of things. And it made me realize that, you know, so many people spend so much more time planning holidays than they actually put in planning their life. When they're planning a holiday, they research online about the places they want to go, the things they want to do, the accommodation options, and they want to cram as much into it and get as much out of it as they can. And yet they don't put that same amount of effort into planning lives. And as I've been thinking about it, it occurs to me, I think that the reason we plan holidays so well compared to the way that we plan our lives is that it's a lot easier to escape than it is to change, isn't it? It's a lot easier to escape from the routines, to escape from that sense of that we find ourselves trapped in the everyday things of life than it is to make changes to our lives, to make changes to ourselves, to make changes to the type of people we want to be or what we're getting out of life, and on it goes. And as I thought about that, I know many of you have also, in the midst of lockdown, had time to reflect and actually made the time to think about what changes you want to make in your life as we move into this new era. And I want to encourage you to be intentional about that. Having done the hard yards of thinking about what changes you want to make, don't just settle into routines and think they're going to happen. I want to encourage you to actually start making those changes. And I think to do that, I think one of the things that's required is that you need to be clear about what it is that you want out of life, where it is that you're going. I think that so many of us, when we come to wanting to make changes in our life, we recognize we have to make change or there's a need to make change, but we're not really clear about, as a consequence, where we want to go and what we want our life to look like. And so I think that if you've been thinking about it, that's the first step for you, is to move from wanting to change, is to be clear about not just wanting to change, but where you want to go and why. And then I think you need to be clear about how you plan on getting there. There's that old saying, isn't there? Without a plan, you plan to fail. But, I think so often what happens when we make plans to change is we focus on the detail of circumstance. We focus on what it is that we want to change about our life. So it might be a career change. It might be a lifestyle change. And we focus on details. And I think that's natural and I think it's important. But I also think that when we think about change and when we make a plan to change, I think we also need to include things like character. We need to include things like our values. We need to include those not negotiables. Because if we don't, then I think that we're tempted to try and take shortcuts as we seek to bring about change in our lives. As I was thinking about this, I was reminded again of what Jesus said in Matthew 6, verse 33, about how, when we're wanting to build our lives, to make sure that our values, our priorities, all of our not negotiables are based on the right things. And if we do, then everything falls into place. Jesus said that if we seek him first and his kingdom, then everything else will fall into place. And so when it comes to making your plan, I want to encourage you, don't just focus on the details about what you want to change, but also make sure that you look at things like character, values, as I say, about becoming the person that you want us to be in order to live out of the fullness of that change. Because what I've observed in life is that generally, and we've all done this, we've all had failure in some aspect of our life, but what I've found is that failure tends to be as a result of a lack of clarity around these two things. A lack of clarity around where we're going, what we want out of life, and a lack of clarity around having a plan to step into that isn't just a plan that includes as I say, the circumstances, but a plan that includes character and all those sorts of things. You know, there's a verse which I think many of us have probably overlooked in Scripture, in Isaiah 32, verse 8, that talks about how the noble person makes noble plans, and that's you and I think. You know, we make our plans, and we like the idea of change, and we begin to strategize and all that. But it goes on and says, not only does a noble person make noble plans, but by noble deeds they stand. You see, this is where it's about the character and all those sorts of things as well. And I just say that because I think that if we can get clarity around those first two, then it makes it easier to do the third thing, which I think is necessary to change, and that is to be prepared to do the hard yards. You know, so often we look at success stories of people who've transitioned in life, people who have changed circumstances, changed lifestyles, changed careers, changed whatever it is that inspires and motivates us at times. And we see the end product, so to speak. And so often what happens is we don't see the behind the scenes work that's gone in. And I can tell you from experience, as you yourself have already began to work out probably, that it takes a lot of effort to change. There's a lot of hard work required to change. You've got to put that effort in, because if you don't, then when testing comes, you end up just defaulting to old behaviors, old patterns, old rhythms of life, and nothing actually ever changes. And so I want to encourage you that as we begin to take up the reins of life again, and you begin to put into place some of those things that you desired to change, some of the things that you wanted to see come about, develop a plan. Be clear about in your mind where you want to go, what life's going to look like, and why. And as you put into place that plan, make sure that you don't neglect those inner things, those character, those values, those not negotiables, so that when the hard yards come, you're not tempted to take shortcuts. And along the way, you'll have ups and downs, but in my experience, you're going to come into that place where you desire to come. You're going to find, as you look back, that there's been these incremental changes that bring you to the place where you can celebrate significant change compared to where you started. So I want to encourage you, you know, as we move into the fullness of life, in the midst of excitement, take those plans, take those dreams, take those hopes that you had in lockdown with you. Don't just leave them as an experience behind, but begin to incorporate them into every part of your life. So God bless you until next time, and know that I hope that your life is continuing to track the way you want it to.